Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Sid. This is my first attempt at a video, so please bear with me. I hope I will get better over time. I had recorded a video for my first topic that I wanted to talk about, and I guess it was too long. So we're going to try to condense my little chat here a little bit and see if that'll upload better. See, the first thing that I was going to talk about, now my channel is going to be kind of geared towards stories from the internet, mostly. Now, it could be things that going on in my life. It could be, I've got a video that I did up a few days ago about the things we've been doing with the yard with the house that I bought about a year and a half ago. So it can vary a little bit, but I think a lot of it's going to be more kind of general news topics, things that are interesting from the internet, whether it's funny or scary or cringeworthy or whatever. So. And eventually, I'm sure I'll get kind of settled into a particular thing after a while. But like I said, this is all new. This is brand new, so we'll see. We'll see where we end up. And the first topic I wanted to discuss was about a gentleman by the name of Dr. Kirk Turner. He is a local dentist, not in a town not too far from where I live. He's in Clemens, North Carolina, and back in September of 2007, he was he got into an altercation with his wife that he was in the process of getting in divorce proceedings with, and they had an argument that escalated, and he ended up killing her during the course of this argument. She came at him with a spear, a 7-foot spear, and then he he had a pocket knife with him, and eventually was able to get to his pocket knife, and he killed her by stabbing her in the neck several times. It's kind of an interesting, legally kind of an interesting story because of how it ended up. I think, and it's one of these things that it was described by our local paper as being our version of the O.J. Simpson trial. Now, O.J. Simpson, he never admitted to doing anything. He denied having anything to do with it. However, Dr. Turner fully admitted to killing his wife, but he did it in self-defense. So, that's one really big difference there. A little background on the couple. They were, at the time when this happened, they had been married for 23 years. 2 years prior to this, now, this Dr. Turner, he's, like I said, a successful dentist, very successful practice. He was making about $650,000 a year in his practice, was doing very well. And 2 years prior to this incident, he and his wife had bought a horse farm. It's about 35 acres, about a 10,000 square foot house, very, very nice location. And they were running this together. Now, of course, he was still a practicing dentist, but this was all she was working with. She didn't have a job outside the home, from what I could tell. She was the one at home primarily dealing with their horse business. And now he had his dental practice, but when he came home from his dental practice, he would go straight into work associated with a horse farm. And so, and that was like an all-encompassing situation for the two of them. That is basically all they did. By all accounts, 10, 12 hours a day. His wife, Jennifer, that is all she's doing. And she's doing you know, pretty much everything. I mean, she's mucking stalls, she's clearing fields, she's, doing all sorts of, very involved work. Not just directly with the horses, but also directly with the property. So, like I said, it was about 2 years into this with the horse farm, and he had grown dissatisfied with the relationship. Now, prior to this, by all accounts, everyone said that he always spoke of being very happy, talked a lot about his wife and his kids and their vacations and all that, but, with them basically doing nothing but working, and it left no time for them to do anything else, really. And he was just not happy. And he started conversing with an old family friend, a lady by the name of Tanya Colvin, that had been their personal banker. Okay. Well, one conversation leads to another, one thing leads to another. They're both dissatisfied with their lives, dissatisfied with their marriages, and eventually this turns into an affair. Well, after 2 weeks into this turning into affair, he goes to his wife and tells his wife Jennifer, he says, I'm not happy with this marriage. I want out. I want a divorce. Okay. Well, so after he had asked for a divorce, his wife Jennifer hires a private investigator. The private investigator finds out that he's fooling around. Now, he had not mentioned anything about, I have another woman on the side. Private investigator finds this out. Well, subsequently, Jennifer eventually ends up filing a suit against the other woman, Miss Colvin, as it's what's called an alienation of affection lawsuit. Basically, it is a way of directly addressing the other person in an affair situation. So she was able to sue the other woman. And by this point, Kirk had moved out of the house. Okay. He was no longer in the house. Jennifer was still there. She was still taking care of the horse farm, and Kirk was having to pay. It was a court order to pay $35,000 a month to Jennifer, but this was predominantly for the money required to maintain the horse breeding farm. Okay, so it wasn't all support for her. It was to maintain the business that the had started. Okay, so, and by this point, there were instances where she was expressing to people that she was afraid of her husband also as well. And there were several accounts of people saying that he did tend to have kind of a bad temper. Okay. Well, so you've got a situation where after 23 years, the husband wants a divorce. She finds out he's fooling around with somebody else. And then he's having to pay all this money every month to maintain the farm, and a percentage of that, of course, is for her, but predominantly, like I said, for the horse farm. So Jennifer, at some point at this time, tells him, so, okay, you know what, I'll make you a deal. We stay married. We don't get a divorce, but I'll let you have your girlfriend. You can stay with her. You can go have vacations with her. You can do whatever you want. I don't care. But we stay married, and you stay at the house. You live at the house. Well, he didn't want to do that. He said, his term that he used was that there's more than one way to end a marriage, which she took to mean, he was leaning towards, killing her or something of that nature. He later claims that what he meant legal separation. he didn't, that was not meant as a threat, but she took it as a threat. He later, like I said, later said, oh, I just meant, legal separation. Okay. So one of their family friends comes over to her one day and says he was going to pick up some furniture, some welding equipment stuff from their property for him. And so he asked, is it okay if I bring Kirk with me? Now, this is a very close family friend, so close that the kids call him Uncle Greg. It's Greg Smithson. So Greg comes over. She says it's okay for him to bring Kirk. They come over, and everything was going okay. And then at one point, I guess she and Kirk get to talking about their stuff. Greg kind of felt uncomfortable, so he leaves the building they're in. He's going to go over and deal with something else for a few minutes. And he says he's gone for 2 or 3 minutes before he comes back. And in the meantime, they had gotten into their physical altercation in that period of time, where Kirk had presented her now with his double whammy to her. Hers was suing the other woman for the alienation of affection lawsuit. Now his, I would argue, his retaliation in this case towards her is he had her first husband that of course she had not been with him for more than over 23 years, obviously at this point, but that the first husband stated she had a obsessive love of horses, that's why their marriage ended, and that he alleged she had an affair. Well, so he presents this to her that he wants to force the sale of the property, and oh, by the way, here's an affidavit from your first husband. This is what he said, because you're obsessively loved horses, and he said he alleged you were fooling around. And so this is when Jennifer gets just irate, upset, mad, over the top, and this is when she grabs the 7-foot-long spear and comes at him. And he says that she twice stabbed him in the groin area, upper leg area. And then he has a pocket knife, so he takes a pocket knife, and as self-defense, because she's coming at him with this spear, he says he now slashes at her twice with this pocket knife, 4-inch pocket knife. Now, just to address this, pocket knives are very common for especially guys, especially in the South. I don't know anywhere else. I know my dad carried a pocket knife everywhere for like forever. It's not necessarily weird that he had a pocket knife. Big whoop. And they even showed a picture. There's a 48 Hours episode that they did. They even showed a picture of the pocket knife. Okay? Just your standard pocket knife. Nothing special. But he had slashed her so significantly. I mean, he cut major arteries. He went down to her spinal cord. Sorry, spinal column. That's how significant these slashes were. These stabs were. Now, Jennifer stated to have been, she was, a good-sized lady. She's 5'11", about 187 pounds, and she was in good shape. I mean, she was working with these horses every day, mucking stalls and stuff. She was in good shape. She was, I'm sure, very strong also, doing all this manual labor kind of stuff. So, his reasoning also was, it wasn't just as cut and dry as, a woman was coming at him. It was, a woman that was, this was not the way it was phrased, but it's like you have a woman that's roughly the size of a man coming at you. She's not little. She's not small. Okay. And so it was like right after this, within a few 2 or 3 minutes, when Greg comes back and finds this, they've already had their blow up. She's stabbed him with a spear. He's come at her with the knife, and now she's on the ground, and a pool of blood. And so Greg, he did say that he did try to perform CPR on her at this time. And there was comments made that he should have been, in the court case, that evidently he did not have really any blood on him, and he should have been covered in blood because, she got her throat slashed. You're going to have to get on the ground where she's at in a pool of blood, and there was evidently not very much blood, if any at all, on him, was the prosecution's argument. If you're doing CPR, where's blood? Prosecution basically suggested that that Greg and Kirk Turner colluded together to come up with this. This is how we're going to get her. This is how I'm going to get out of having to deal with divorcing my wife and going through this whole ugly process, and to cover up the fact that Lee killed her. Lee came up with this scheme that this whole self-defense thing, that he actually Lee suggested that he actually was the one that stabbed himself with a sword. That Lee claimed that he couldn't find any prints or any suggestion that she had touched the sword, but that he had used the sword to stab himself after he had slashed her throat. Okay, this was the prosecution's suggestion. Remember that in the whole time, Kirk is not denying that he killed his wife. He's just saying he did it in self-defense. Okay. But anyway, so they say their assertion is he staged the scene to make it look like she attacked him. They also had some blood splatter evidence that would suggest that she was already on the ground also when he stabbed her the way he did. Let's see. And then also Greg Smithson said it happened around 8 o'clock or so, but then no one called 911 until 9:30. How do you explain the hour and a half difference? And, Smithson said, well, okay, I wasn't paying that much attention. I was just guesstimating what the time is. I wasn't looking at my watch every 5 minutes. Okay, but it's still a pretty huge time difference, hour and a half. Not looking at your watch or not. That's a big time difference. And also the pocket in Kirk's jeans where he had the pocket knife, evidently there was none of her blood in that pocket. It was just his. Okay, they say. You see, the stab wounds on Jennifer were so deep that they cut her carotid artery and trachea, and they also reached all the way back to the spine in her neck. The jury had considered first-degree murder. That was what he was charged with. He also considered second-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter. So to prove first-degree murder, he had to plan to kill his wife, and it be premeditated and deliberate. Prosecutors chose not to pursue the death penalty in the case. And he was also allowed, once he bonded out of jail, prison, I guess jail. Once he bonded out, they allowed him to go back to work as a dentist. I worked with a guy. This was Dr. Turner was his dentist. Well, and the guy still kept going to Dr. Turner, even with all this going on. I mean, I'm not sure I could have. I don't know that I probably wouldn't have, to be honest. Just because, I don't know. That's just me. Let's see. After the court case, after he was found innocent because of self-defense, Kirk Turner sued the the State Bureau of Investigation for trying to frame him for the killing. The lawsuit posited that and this also went all the way to the North Carolina State Supreme Court. Also, and the State Supreme Court said that they could proceed with the case. The lawsuit against the State Bureau of Investigation was filed in Forsyth County in 2011, and the two agents involved that were in the case, named in the case, were Dwayne Deaver and Gerald Thomas. These stated that it was felt the fabricated blood evidence so that they could help support the prosecution timeline and what they were suggesting happened. Let's see. He was charged. Let's see. Okay, and let's see. So anyway, finally, in March of 2011, this case that Turner filed was settled for $200,000. Okay. Now, it was settled. That isn't necessarily, they were found to be guilty or anything of that nature. It was like, well, okay, you know what, we'll pay you money. We'll give you money. And in the course of settling, they did not in any way, shape, or form admit to any wrongdoing, and they denied the allegations. Deaver's work was also questioned in another high-profile case in the area for this gentleman named Greg Taylor, who was convicted of murder and spent 17 years in prison. The murder of, I'm not going to pronounce her first name right, I'm sorry. It's Jaquetta Thomas, and spent 17 years in prison and was later released based on the fact that the evidence, the testimony that was given was cited as being misleading. So you have, there's at least one case, another case, where you have an instance of someone that was in jail, was actually in jail for a long time, was in prison for a long time, that was released because of something they did. And also Michael Peterson, the author, he lived in the Raleigh-Durham area, that there's a documentary he did about his case, the Sear case. Very good documentary. Deaver was also connected to his case as well. Let's see. In that case, it was determined that Deaver lied on the stand, in his case as well. Peterson spent 8 years in jail, prison, in his case, and when they came back with the information on Deaver, he was able to get a new trial and had the charges reduced from first-degree murder of his wife to manslaughter, and was allowed, because the amount of time he'd spent in prison would have had exceeded the amount of time he would have been given for the manslaughter charge. So once that was determined, he was allowed to be released at that point. And eventually Deaver was fired. Surprise, surprise. The Greensboro News and Record newspaper ran a series showing SBI agents ignoring evidence and trying to tailor the information they were giving to prosecution to help prove whatever they were trying to prove in the case. And the Roy Cooper, who is now the governor of the state of North Carolina, he was the attorney general at the time, and he ordered an audit which found the State Bureau of Investigation either withheld or distorted evidence in over 200 cases, which is kind of scary. I mean, however you may feel about Kirk Turner and what happened with him, and however you feel about him, even in self-defense, killing someone and not getting any jail time, finding these inconsistencies on the prosecution, law enforcement end, doesn't help either. I mean, you have just opened up so many cases that, whether it's, even if you did send the right person to jail, if you have instances where you have manipulated evidence and you're giving them a doorway to let these people out of jail, what good have you done? You know what I mean? So anyway, that's the story in a nutshell of Dr. Turner. He's still a practicing dentist here in Clemens, in near where I live, and that's going to be the end of my story for today. Thank you so much for sticking around this long with me. I appreciate it. Please come back for more. Please give me a like and please subscribe. I would really appreciate it. I'm going to try to get as much uploaded onto my channel as I can right here at first, and then get settled into an actual routine more so, maybe on the weekends, right? Friday or Saturday, something like that, being days that I'm going to try to upload, maybe more if I can. But that's it for today. If you stayed this long with me, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And come back and watch some more videos when I get them put up. Thank you so much.